Do you ever get lonely?
Yeah, I think everyone gets lonely.
That's almost like a daily struggle.
I often feel very lonely in the city.
What does it feel like?
It feels like being lost, like in a maze.
With no hand reaching out to you, and you just don't really feel like climbing back out, or you just can't climb back out.
It feels like that feeling of like you're about to cry, but you just don't need to.
Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new to my channel, welcome to my channel. My name is Tonibryanne, and in today's lovely video, we'll be discussing the loneliness epidemic. So you may believe that elders are the loneliest generation, but believe it or not, it actually is Gen Z. Recent surveys show that a staggering 73% of young adolescents to the age of 27 often feel alone and disconnected. And this shouldn't be incredibly shocking because a lot of Gen Zers have been expressing how lonely they've been feeling in recent times. With this, the rise of mental health issues such as depression, anxiety, and thoughts of wanting to unalive yourself have been at an all-time high. Loneliness is more than just this passing feeling. It's a silent epidemic that affects our health in very significant ways. So in today's video, we will be discussing how loneliness affects not only ourselves, but also society as a whole, and more specifically, its impact on both Gen Z and now Gen Alpha. But before we get into today's video, I would like to thank the sponsor of today's video, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. They've recently launched a campaign focused on birth justice, highlighting organizations like Ancient Song and Common Sense Childbirth. Now, these incredible leaders are focusing on equitable Black maternal health care. These organizations provide doula training, community education, and advocate for policy changes that empower mothers. I specifically want to share my thoughts on why this is so incredibly important. As a Black woman, it is terrifying to know that I am almost 3 times more likely to die from childbirth compared to non-Black women. Doulas and midwives are essential in addressing the healthcare inequities. By lifting the voices of Black, Indigenous, and other people of color, we can create a world where every birth story is a wonderful one. By sparking a conversation for solutions for these inequities, together we can advocate for the change that we need. I encourage you all to check out the short films linked down below to learn more about these wonderful organizations. So join the movement for birth justice with the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. Let's support their mission together and protect mothers. Thank you so much, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, for sponsoring this video. And without further ado, you guys, let's get straight into today's video.
Taking you in this moment.
Today's quote of the day is, I am actively writing my healing chapter. Today's verse of the day is Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1, and it reads, Now faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. So I'm unsure if you guys have noticed, but people are participating a lot less in social activities than they once did. And data is repeatedly showing that isolation is becoming more and more of a bigger problem. In one report, it was discovered back in 2003 that people spent an average of 285 minutes a day alone. By 2019, that number climbed to 309 minutes a day alone. And by 2020, in just a year, it skyrocketed. The average person spent 333 minutes alone. That is an extra 24 hours spent alone in a month. And as I stated a little bit earlier, people have been spending a lot less time socially engaging with others in public spaces. For instance, if we're looking at the statistics, time spent hanging out with friends dropped from 60 minutes a day in 2003 to just 20 minutes a day in 2020. And this decline becomes even more dramatic when we're speaking about the younger generation, particularly ages 15 to 24. In 2003, they spent about 150 minutes a day with friends. But by 2020, that number had plummeted to just 40 minutes a day. That is a 70% decrease in less than 2 decades. So as I'm sure you guys can tell by the years, the pandemic that happened back in 2020 seems to have been the reason that a lot of these trends have significantly accelerated. Forced isolation has now caused us to have voluntary isolation. isolation. And the impact of loneliness goes far beyond just our personal health. It has always and is now seeping into our communities, whether that's in school, workplaces, organizations, public spaces. A lack of connection can lead to a decreased performance, productivity, and engagement in the real world. So how did we get here? Why is our generation so lonely? We're going to discuss a few different realms as to why I believe that we have become so lonely and so isolated from one another. And that is starting off first with Gen Z's addiction to social media. With the significant progression and advancement of technology and digital media over the past few decades, the conversation of digital addiction has become a very heavy topic. Now, social media can both be seen as harmful and helpful. I'm not going to take that away because y'all know this is how I make my money, so I'm not going to say too much on that. On one hand, social media keeps us connected with our friends and family no matter where we are around the world. People are able to make money off of this. People are able to be creative. They're able to see others that are similar to them. It's a great tool for education, but on the flip side, and y'all know there's a lot on the flip side, but today we're only going to highlight one side of the flip side. It can also make people feel more isolated, especially when they are excessively using it. So how exactly has technology, more specifically social media, impacted the loneliness epidemic in Gen Z? Well, I got a few notes to read to y'all to exactly how that has gone about. Number one, limited physical interactions. Have y'all parents ever asked, hey, are you still in touch with, I don't know, Rebecca or Samantha or Bryanne? And then you go like, yeah, we're still connected. But that yeah really means that y'all only like each other's pictures, comment on each other's pictures, and maybe laugh at someone's Instagram story. Yeah, I'm sure we've all been there. Technically, yeah, that's interacting with one another, but y'all aren't really in contact with one another. Like, sure, yeah, we can like someone's post and leave a comment, and that shows, hey, I'm still in the picture, I still exist. But those limited interactions do not and cannot replace deep conversations that builds and molds those real and authentic relationships. So relationships that you share with people online are considered more so parasocial relationships. And that's what a lot of people have. Parasocial relationships don't make you feel like you really have friends. You may think you do because you guys are having conversations digitally, but that is not the case.
A parasocial relationship. It's defined as a non-reciprocal connection with a public figure. And that makes sense because people know a lot about celebrities, but celebrities don't know a lot about us. But what if I told you that parasocial relationships aren't exclusive to just famous people anymore? And no, I'm not talking about influencers. I'm talking about your friends. Nowadays, if our social media profiles are public, we're by definition public figures. And that can be confusing because now that means that a person can have a parasocial relationship with someone they know in real life. Think about the people you follow who you actually know in real life. How long have you been following them for? Do you really know them? Realistically, the people you followed on social media 3 years ago are not the same people today. And even though you get updates about their life, you don't really know who they are anymore. You just know the version of themselves that they decided to share online. Just because you once knew someone doesn't mean you know them now.
Social media and parasocial relationships give the illusion that we're really connected with others, when in all actuality, it makes you feel more disconnected than connected. And that's because those parasocial relationships are not as meaningful as those real life relationships. Along with that, the comfortability of being on our phones all day and having only virtual interactions and connections, it has led a lot of us to not be able to interact with people in real life. Being a girl from New York City, though I'm technically from Jersey now, I kind of claim both. I just think of train rides and buses, and literally nobody talks, okay? It might be the random man breakdancing in the middle of the subway, but people don't have like authentic and real conversations. And this used to be the norm back in the day. People used to actually speak because we didn't have our phones and our digital devices as a distraction to interact with the real world. These basic interactions were such small tokens, but they were significantly impactful for our mental health, believe it or not. Recent research by Ezra Asagil, I hope I'm pronouncing her last name correctly, but her and her team discovered that brief and even short and casual interactions that we have with strangers every day can really create a positive impact on our mental well-being, suggesting that even the most minimal social contact can make a big difference in how connected and fulfilled we feel. She went on to say that it was a reminder that it doesn't always take deep, long conversations to feel good. Sometimes sometimes just a small or quick chat can brighten someone's day and even our days. So this is like a quick conversation with your coworker, just checking in on how their weekend was going, a friendly chat with a stranger while you're waiting online to get your coffee at Starbucks, or just saying hello, good morning. There was just this post by this TikToker, I'm completely forgetting her name, but I'm gonna try and find the TikTok, where she was complaining about how cashiers no longer say hello to customers anymore. And a lot of people got really upset with what she had to say, more particularly cashiers. Now let's take a look at some commentary that people shared with what she had to say.
When I was a cashier making $8.05 an hour, all I could sit and think about was why Pizza Hut was texting my man at 2 a.m. that I had a UTI and that I wanted to die, literally. Cashiers are treated so poorly in society and often seen as props for people's amusement. They have to be super friendly, they have to be super kind, yada, yada, yada. But the thing is, with cashiers, they literally have to stand up on their feet because at some jobs, if you can lean, you can clean. So they literally overwork you. You're not allowed to go on your phone or touch base. You can barely get water, so you end up getting a UTI. And then on top of that, you have to deal with the nastiest, rudest Karens ever in life. They're going to come in and cuss you out because you accidentally forgot to give them a bag. They're going to cuss you out because the grapes rang up 20 more cents a pound than they were supposed to. Things that you literally have no control over. Now, I will say that yes, as human beings, we do owe each other a certain amount of decency. A hi, how are you doing? Hello, how's your day going? But to be quite honest, some of y'all drop stuff on cashiers that you shouldn't talk to a therapist about. Like, you talk about how you're hunching your grandma's cousin's auntie and how that makes you feel bad, how your mom has to go sell whole for her next hit of crack. Like, there's some stuff that you should just talk to a therapist about and stop treating cashiers like therapists.
Now, I completely get from the people that were complaining about her and saying that you guys don't understand how horrible customers can be and how we're overworked and we're just tired. But just judging by Ezra's research, just saying hello is okay.
As a person who is a cashier currently and has been a cashier on and off for like 7 years, right? I feel like what Annika said wasn't that big of a deal, and y'all are just complaining to complain at this point. Y'all are literally making all these think pieces because a woman said she wants to go to an establishment and people talk to her. That's not crazy to say. I don't know why y'all are trying to make this crazy thing. The way how y'all are reacting, y'all made me think that Annika was saying some slur. In reality, she was like, what happened to hey, hello, how are you? And to be honest, what happened to that? When I go to places and the cashier is not speaking to me at all, I do find that a little bit strange. I'm so sorry. I know people's lives are hard. I know because I'm a cashier, my life is hard. But I would still at least fake it till I make it, you know? Also, I'm starting to think this generation really hates happiness and fun because I'm like, either way, you're going to be working that shift, whether you like it or not. Work this shift and put on a smile because that makes people's days a lot better. Therefore, them being happy can make you happy, you know? And even as I'm talking right now, my favorite moments at work are when I have a true connection with somebody and we bond and we laugh. And it's like, I really needed that laugh because my feet are hurting, y'all. Y'all are not trying to look for any good moments, any silver linings, nothing, and I really hate that. Do I think some cashiers are being paid unfairly? Well, yes. But also, that doesn't mean you can be mean, you know? Like, I'm sorry, y'all just defending being mean at this point. I'm like, I don't know where y'all live, but where I live, the customer service is at least say hi, how are you, have a nice day. Like, huh? And I don't want to sound like a boomer, but it's really looking like some aspects of respect are going to die in this generation, and the hi, hello, how are yous at stores is one of them. And I'm like, why? I'm sorry, when I go to an establishment, I want the person to speak to me with respect, and I would do the same if I was the person who was working there, you know? Like, it's again not that hard.
And what's interesting is that this is more of a problem in the North than it is the South. As someone who has grown up primarily in the North and has recently moved to the South, I have been living in Georgia for 2 years now, and people are a lot nicer here. Every time I go back home to Jersey, I'm like, please get me back home. People are just a lot friendlier here, and it really does boost that serotonin. I have always been someone that likes to speak to people. I'm a talker. I mean, I literally have my own little personal talk show, and I find it to be very important for my mental well-being. Now, obviously, this is not all the time. Sometimes you just don't want to be bothered, especially when I'm in an Uber. Like, I don't really want to talk in an Uber. But like just saying, hello, how are you? How's your day going? Or me and a stranger see something funny and we kind of giggle about it together. Those things bring me a little bit of joy, and I can see how it can benefit my mental well-being in the long run. It seems that a lot of people don't see the value in that, especially in today's world.
Oh, I hate small talk. I can't stand small talk. When's the last time you made a genuine new friend? When's the last time you made a connection outside of who you went to school with or who's in your family? When's the last time you made friends with your neighbors, people at work? When's the last time you got a job just purely based on knowing someone? I really wonder about some of you people because small talk is literally how you begin anything. You can't just walk up to someone and ask them a deep question. Like, they don't know you. Just because you're slightly uncomfortable with these small little moments with strangers doesn't mean they're not important and that you shouldn't do that. Conversing with someone is a skill and you need to practice, okay? It'll make your life better. Have you complained that you're lonely lately?
it can be indicated that the lack of small talk in adults in their day-to-day lives, due to being glued to their electronic devices, results in the increase of sadness and loneliness that we see every single day. So now we're going to throw back to the pandemic once again, because the pandemic seems to be the root of a lot of problems that we're seeing today in terms of loneliness. So the pandemic had a profound effect on Gen Z and Gen Alpha, without a doubt. It definitely exacerbated the feeling of loneliness, and it worsened a lot of our mental health. These two generations that were already trying to navigate a digitally excessive and lonely world had to deal with it times 10 due to the pandemic. So here are a few things that happened during the pandemic that resulted in Gen Z and Gen Alpha potentially feeling even lonelier than they were before the pandemic. Number one, let's discuss the excessive screen time. So the whole concept of too much screen time and staring at your phone screen and your iPads and your computers all day really hit hard for my fellow Gen Zers and Gen Alpha. We all know with the pandemic, we weren't even allowed to be outside due to a virus spreading. So it's not like, oh, we were on lockdown because our schools were closed or there was a strike going on, where you could be kind of stuck in the house, but you were able to interact with strangers or other people face to face. No, we couldn't even interact with each other because we were dealing with a very contagious virus. So everybody was stuck on their devices more than ever. Even if they wanted to interact with others, they were interacting with others virtually via Zoom, via FaceTime, and whatever virtual conversation app that was out at the time. So while at this time, things like social media and video calls were seen as a necessity and just our lifeline, a lot of people began experiencing digital burnout. The endless scrolling and virtually talking to people and the double tapping could not replace the feeling of being connected with people in person. It was like we were connecting with people, but we weren't feeling fulfilled by doing so. And this goes especially for people who weren't very close to their family, and maybe going to school or going to work was their escape from dealing with their families. Or for the people that just lived alone, they had no escape at all. They were just home with their thoughts and having nothing else to do. And once again, maybe work was their escape. Maybe joining that book club was their escape. But none of those options were available due to this virus that was very contagious. So because of this, like I said, people got absorbed in their phones, scrolling through their feeds, watching TikToks, creating TikToks, going on Twitter, just doing everything on their phone, which ultimately leads to social isolation. And studies show the more time people spend on social media, the more time they spend alone. So on top of that, people being glued to their screens for several hours a day leads to a lot of different things, such as anxiety, lack of sleep, and in a lot of cases, depression, especially with that lack of physical activity. Social media quickly became this weird loop for Gen Z and Gen Alpha. People began feeling lonely the longer they were locked up in their houses, so they'd go online to feel connected. But in doing that, they ended up feeling even more disconnected because digital interaction just is not enough. We need that physical interaction.
I feel like I'm gonna delete this because I feel like no one can relate. I'm starting to feel crazy. I feel like I've been chronically lonely since like 2020. Just gonna be honest, I feel like I lost a huge chunk of myself during the COVID time. I want to be more open and honest about it because I feel like I talk about stupid shit a lot. I feel like loneliness is a topic that I don't hear a lot about, and I know a lot of us are dealing with it. It's a really weird feeling I don't know how to describe because I feel really fulfilled in certain buckets of my life, like my relationship, my family, but the friendship bucket, it hits me so hard. It feels like the world has totally snapped back into place. Everyone has carried on with their routines. I feel like I was also at the age where you naturally transition away from your friends and focus more on having kids and family and planting roots. I think like between the isolation of that and the natural phase of growing up, post-grad life, like I just feel like I never came back. Does anyone else feel this way if you were like in your early or mid 20s during COVID? Because I don't know if they're related. I don't know if it's just all in my head, but I just feel like I've been chronically lonely even though I'm around people all the time.
I cannot believe it's almost going to be 5 years since we were living that life. Woo, time is flying, child. Oh my gosh. Now that we're all trying to get back into the normal life, the long-term effects of the pandemic are now showing up in Gen Z and Gen Alpha's lives. A lot of young people are struggling with social anxiety, face-to-face interactions after having virtual interactions for so long, and just being able to communicate and being able to live among other children. And this more specifically really affects Gen Gen Alpha, especially the ones that were just starting school, teachers have been talking, and I did a whole video about everything wrong with Gen Alpha, and if y'all want to check that out, go ahead and check it out. It is a very good video. But the teachers are seeing it. My mother, being a teacher, she noticed this like crazy. It just shows how important it is for us to not be isolated and for us to immerse ourselves in the world, because so many imperative things happen, especially when we're children, that impact us and prepare us for later on in our lives. So yeah, that's a whole different video for a different day of how isolation can really impact us when we are trying to immerse ourselves into society. So now let's get into the entire concept of FOMO and people comparing themselves when they are spending too much time on their phones alone. So platforms like Instagram and now unfortunately TikTok are full of people sharing these curated lifestyles. And it's so sad because TikTok used to be known as being this real app, but it definitely is not the case anymore. A lot of TikTokers, especially the ones that get these amazing and big opportunities, their content is very curated. It's almost as if we're watching a television show. Is it entertaining? Yes, but this is the problem with content like this. When you see other people constantly posting about all their successes, the fun things they're doing, all of the friends they have, how organized they are, how they have it just going on, mwah, chef's kiss. It all looks great, right? But the thing is, it's not gonna make you feel great 9 out of 10 times. It is so easy to feel left out or inadequate when you're constantly seeing this kind of content. You feel like you're the only one that's not successful quite yet. You're confused why you're the same age as this influencer, but she has a penthouse in a high-rise building and you're still living with your parents. You don't get how everybody's in a happy relationship. You don't get why everybody's getting married, but you're the only one that has not. You don't get why you're the only one that's been single for so long. You don't get why you have no friends. You don't get why you didn't get to go into your dream school. You see all these things, it's constantly comparing yourself to a whole alternate universe that we're seeing online. And most of the times, what we show online is a highlight reel. A lot of people are going through some things behind the scenes that they just don't care to show, which is completely okay because not everything is for the internet. But you're not thinking that, you're just seeing what they're posting. And I'm sure they probably have that same feeling because I think we all just compare our lives to other people naturally. This is what I call FOMO, the fear of missing out. And FOMO can increase the feeling of loneliness, unfortunately. It makes you feel like you're the only one going through bad stuff. You're the only one that has no friends. You're the only one that's single. You're the only one that can't afford to pay your bills. It's a very isolating feeling. However, like I said, we all have moments like this, even the ones that are posting and showing their perfectly curated lives. So now let's get into relationship culture for Gen Z more particularly, and how it has exacerbated the loneliness epidemic. Dating for Gen Z is hard as I can't even say it, y'all, but it is difficult. It is so difficult, especially if you are one that has high standards and is looking for very specific things in a partner. Because honestly, y'all, it's not that hard to get a boyfriend, but having a good and healthy, long-lasting relationship, that is hard to find. And unfortunately, loneliness is a big part of the reason why dating in Gen Z is so difficult. Hear me out, y'all. With so much of our social lives happening online, a lot of our relationships don't translate into a deeper, meaningful one. Instead, it actually makes dating feel more isolating. So as you guys know, if you guys are dating, a lot of how dating goes today is using dating apps, using social media, sliding into the DMs, and that's really all that there is to it. That's how a lot of people now say how they met their partner. We're meeting more online than we are meeting in person, and then realizing, wow, we're really similar. Let's go on a date. Traditionally, men would go up and talk to women that they found attractive in public settings. But now with the reliance of social media and dating apps, men are less and less likely to come up and approach us, which once again can exacerbate the feeling of isolation, feeling unwanted, feeling like you're not pretty enough, you're not good enough. But whole time it's because they just don't want to come up to you. And that's because it's probably a lot easier to message a girl online, and probably taking the potential rejection is a lot easier too. Y'all ever dealt with a man that would DM you after seeing you out like, oh, I saw you at so-and-so, but I didn't want to go up to you? And that is so effing frustrating. It is so frustrating, y'all. I swear it is so frustrating. But I can't just blame men because of this. Like, y'all, I know I'm taking up for the men right now. And that's because some of y'all women be saying some really crazy things online about men when they approach. And if I were a man, that would make me not want to approach any of us either.
When I said that the dudes don't be bothering you when you go out, I wasn't implying that y'all wasn't attractive girls. I wasn't implying it was because you was not cute. I was telling the truth. Most of y'all are not getting harassed when you go outside. You're not even getting asked for your number. And it don't got nothing to do with your looks or anything else. The dudes just ain't doing it no more. And can you really blame them? All y'all do is get online and bash men 24/7 and talk about how horrible they are, and then turn around and wonder why don't nobody want to say nothing to you when you be out. Be for real.
Did y'all see that video with Queen Naija talking about a man coming up to talk to her? Like, this is why we are such a lonely society. Nobody's talking to one another because they're scared of being crucified online after they just decide to go up to somebody and say, hey, you're beautiful, or hey, I'd like to take you out to eat.
One time this guy walked up to me in Target. Y'all, this stuff really be happening. He walked up to me in Target, he said, hi, how you doing? My name is da-da-da. And like put his hand out to shake my hand. I just looked at him like, boy, it's COVID going on. And then I thought he would have said something else. I don't know. He could say something. What you doing after this? You want to catch some drinks? Like, first of all, this is why I probably should have security. I'm not gonna hold you. But first of all, it's like, who goes to Target, meet somebody at 5 p.m. in the day, and say, hey, let's go get drinks? Are you an alcoholic? Are you an alcoholic? It'd be so many things that y'all don't even know, like, that be happening to me, and I don't say anything when I'm out. Let me just clarify before somebody take that small little clip and then it be some weird. But yeah, it be annoying.
Men don't talk to women anymore, or pursue women, or walk up to women anymore, approach women, whatever you want to call it, because it seems like every damn thing men do is wrong. Any kind of way you come up to a woman or approach a woman or try to talk to a woman seems like it's wrong. If you talk to a girl, we done seen it like all over the internet. Every app you can think of, a woman has had an issue with every kind of way a man has approached them. We've seen women have an issue with men talking to them in the club, talking to them in the bar, talking to them on the street, talking to them in the grocery store, talking to them in the gym, talking to them like while you're in your car. Like, we've seen women everywhere say they had an issue with how men approach them in every kind of way. So it's like what the fuck do we do? Like, how do we do it? Like, what is the correct way? Like, it's just like we just give the fuck up. It's like, what's the point?
Once again, social media, though it is my job, is the downfall of society. Because, geez, oh my gosh, there's always a new complainer. So another aspect of dating that is absolutely horrid and makes us feel lonely, isolated, and worthless is ghosting and hookup culture. Ghosting is a huge contribution to the loneliness that is felt in the dating world. One minute you're texting someone, you think everything's going great, and then the next moment, they just never text you back.
There is no worse feeling when you're talking to someone and you're excited about talking with them and you've been messaging them and then they go rogue, they go ghost, they go off the grid, you don't hear a thing and you're like, what the hell happened? And then you start telling yourself lies in your head and you're like, well, probably they're just really tired, or they have a lot going on in their life, or something happened in their family, or their pet ran away. Like, you just start telling yourself things to make you feel better because you're like, how could they just stop responding to me? And then you know it's over because you go on their social media and the minute they post something, whether it's a photo, whether it's a story, you've lost them. They're gone forever. And your heart drops and you're like, oh, they're choosing to ignore me. Great.
I'm sure some of us have ghosted. I'm sure some of us have done the ghosting. Like, we've all been there, okay? Whether for good a reason or not, it still can make people feel really, really bad about themselves. Ghosting has become so common that it's almost expected, but that does not make it any less hurtful. I can speak from my experience. Whenever I'm texting a man that is like very attractive or has a very good career, I don't expect them to be like a good partner. I don't expect them to text back. I don't expect them to say, hey, let's go on a date. I have very low expectations from them, and that's really, really sad. It's to the point where I just choose not to talk to very attractive men. Like, I just don't want to, because I just can't, my heart can't take it, okay? And when you do get ghosted, it leaves you questioning like what went wrong and feeling rejected and just like an ugly platypus. Yes. I don't know what a platypus looks like besides Perry the platypus, but yes, it makes you feel bad, okay?
I gotta be real, I think ghosting culture is toxic as shit. We are living in a sad generation. Like, people do not know how to communicate at all. And I don't want to hear any of that defensive, like, oh, I don't owe anybody anything, you know, whatever, I can talk to them when I talk to. No, I'm gonna tell y'all what's up. You're scared. We're living in a generation of a bunch of scared pussy, and that's why they're so defensive. Of course, ghosting is necessary if it gets to a ridiculous point. But in most cases that I hear, most cases that have happened to me, that's just not the case. It's just really sad that we've gotten to a point that people are so disposable. And I really don't know what the future holds. I don't know what that says, honestly. It's terrifying.
And this just fuels the continuous cycle of insecurity, isolation, loneliness, and it makes it a lot harder to trust or invest in future relationships and connections, which leads to things like hookup culture, casual dating, so on and so forth. Oh, and obviously people staying single, lonely, isolated. Y'all gonna hear me say that word a whole bunch of times. And this is the same with even hookup culture. It's the feeling of instant gratification. You don't have to work or try to get to know somebody because, I mean, it's just sex. It doesn't matter, right? That lack of no romance constantly fuels that empty feeling, unworthiness, and loneliness.
All right, let's talk about hookup culture. How it leaves you empty, how it leaves you feeling completely drained. When you try to be in this generation's way of dating and you just hook up with people because that's how you feel in the moment, and then you wonder why you feel depressed and drained after the fact because you just gave the most vulnerable piece of yourself away to a person you don't even know for temporary satisfaction, for temporary numbing. For someone who actually is connected with themselves and wants something deep like love, you just having shallow connections and shallow intimacy with people leaves you feeling empty. It leaves you feeling drained. It leaves you feeling numb. It leaves you feeling absolutely nothing. And then you keep going in the cycle because you keep trying to replace those empty feelings with more hookup, with more hookup, with more dopamine hits. But we wonder why dating is so broken right now when most people are just literally not valuing intimacy at all.
With the rise of casual dating, hookup culture, ghosting culture, baby mama and baby daddy culture even, and just the pressures of social media as a whole, forming deeper and more meaningful relationships is more difficult than ever. And then with ties of hookup culture and dating culture, I feel as if a lot of people feel like they have more options than they really do, so they end up just dating everybody, or if one thing makes them upset that I wouldn't consider necessarily a deal breaker, they make a deal breaker because they're like, I can just find anybody. Social media exacerbated this as well because you see so many people from different regions, you see so many people from different cities, countries, all over the world basically, and you feel like you can just date anybody and you can get anyone you really want. But that's the furthest thing from the truth. You just end up feeling lonely and empty because you're trying out all these different people, you're trying to look for perfection, but perfection does not exist.
People confuse unlimited access for unlimited options. Just because you have unlimited access to people through social media and dating apps doesn't mean that those options are viable partners for you. Let's talk about it. I get so sad / frustrated when I see people hop from person to person, situationship to situationship, because I know that they're thinking the grass is greener. But just because you find someone hotter doesn't mean that you're gonna share the same connection or the same chemistry or the same compatibility with that new person as you would with someone that you can build with. Like, figuring out compatibility takes time. It takes multiple conversations. It takes multiple like physical dates or encounters. And same with connection. Like, you have to learn to trust that person. So it just gives me the ick when people can't commit to exploring a connection with someone before they move on to the next.
But I say this all to say is that loneliness does not just come from being single, okay? You can feel very fulfilled while being single. Like, let's be for real. I feel great right now being single, though I'd love to have a partner, but I do feel really good being single. I'm okay with being single. I feel good about myself, especially right now. I feel amazing today. But the loneliness instead comes from the lack of real emotional intimacy in many of the connections that we share with others in the dating world. It's not just dating and relationships, also friendships. Building friendships and maintaining friendships is at an all-time low right now.
Gen Z needs to be way more forthcoming about how lonely we are, because I am extremely freaking lonely. I am spending Saturday night alone again. And I don't get it. I'm young, I'm pleasant, I'm friendly, I have big hair, I'm a wing woman, okay? Everyone just doesn't want to make eye contact with each other. I don't get it. I don't get it. So anyways, if you want to be friends, let's ruin the integrity of an event together.
Finding a friend is just as hard as dating today, okay? For a lot of us, friendships used to be about hanging out, spending time with one another, having a little sleepover, sharing our experiences, and just spending one-on-one time together. But now, with the rise of digital communication, those face-to-face interactions have significantly dwindled. While texting and social media keeps us in touch, they cannot nearly replace the depth and emotional connection of in-person friendships. Many people find themselves themselves surrounded by friends online, but not so much friends in person. One thing I've really noticed in us not building these authentic and real relationships and friendships is that nobody is really hosting get-togethers anymore, mainly in Gen Z. You don't really see cookouts happening, you don't really see house parties, you don't see groups of friends going out bowling, and then maybe you bring a plus one and then you meet their friends, and then that's how all the friends end up gathering and maybe even dating. That doesn't happen anymore because no one's playing those things. And also, a lot of people cannot even afford to live on their own because the economy is complete. So people are just literally at home, not meeting other people. Even something as simple as children being forced to go outside and play. I know our parents, maybe even y'all parents as well, used to share how they would have friends in the neighborhood. They would go outside and they would play, but they had to be home before the street lights came on. Children are no longer forced to go outside and play because, hey, they have their own electronics. They can keep themselves busy without bothering their parents. All they need is some headphones and an iPad screen, and they are locked and loaded for the entire day. Before the kids did that, because they were so bored at home, they had to go step outside, and they knew the fun was outside. Even with the hosting of events, I'm sure if we did not have our phones, we probably would be more inclined or find a way around, even if the economy was this bad, to meet up with people outside. There would definitely be more cookouts, more block parties, more bowling alley meetups. There would be a lot more physical interactions that were planned out effectively to actually happen. When kids would go outside and play, that was how they were able to practice to learn how to build and maintain a strong and healthy relationship with people. But with them just being glued to their phones, they're never gonna have to learn how to maintain and build those relationships. Now, some apps like Bumble decided to try and bridge that gap of people feeling so lonely and feeling like they don't have any friends by creating, of course, Bumble the dating app, and then also Bumble BFF, which is a different app. It's like a part of Bumble, but it's a different side of Bumble where you're able to meet up with friends. But a lot of women have stated that they have not had the best experience using Bumble BFF. Take a look at this.
We need to have a very candid discussion about Bumble BFF. It's weird. Okay, if you've ever moved to a major metro city and you've tried Bumble BFF, I hope you found at least one good one because I totally think you can. But there are some really, really weird girls on that app. Like, very bizarre. I thought when I went on Bumble BFF when I first moved to a city that, okay, everybody on it also just moved to a city, great way to meet people. And it was, like, some people are good. But there are some people who have, I'm like, you've lived in this town for 4 or 5 years and you're on Bumble BFF, kind of seems weird. But whatever, I was like, okay, I'll just follow them on Instagram. We mutual follow. Now I see like a couple of years later, they're still like meeting up with all these new people and like posting like charcuterie board pictures, wine night, and tagging like new people every like 3 to 6 months. I feel like there's like new friends, like best friends, like night with my besties. So anyway, beware when you move to a new city and try to find the good ones.
Y'all, I really am going to delete the Bumble BFF app. I'm at a point now where, like, girls don't really want to be friends, and they're weird as hell. So, I'm going to tell y'all about, because right now, I'm being stood up, right? So, I had met this girl on Bumble BFF. We hit it off. We was cool. Literally, like, texting almost every day, sending voice notes. Like, she's telling me what's going on with her or whatever. And, like, literally hit it off. Thought it was cool. We was like, I said to her, I was like, oh, let's set up a date. Let's go out or whatever. So, we decided we're going to go to this brunch spot. Boom. I even texted her, like, hey, just to confirm, we're good Saturday, 1 o'clock. Right? So I literally had box braids in my hair yesterday. I was like, you know what? I'm not really feeling I had it for a while. Let me take it out. Took the time to take it out, ordered hair, whatever, so it could come first thing in the morning. I've been up since 6:45. I started to do my hair, whatever, to make sure I'm on time or whatever. But when it got closer to 1 o'clock, I was like, oh, I'm going to be 15 minutes late. Like, just letting you know. I even texted her like 11 o'clock to say like, oh, I texted her 11 o'clock and I was like, oh, I'm getting ready now. Just letting you know, whatever. Didn't hear anything. I should have known from then. That she probably wasn't going to show up because I texted you like good morning or whatever, looking forward to seeing you at 1, nothing. That was like 8 o'clock. Then I texted her again and I was like, oh, 11 o'clock, like, oh, I'm getting ready. Boom, nothing. Then when it was like closer to 1, I was like, oh, I'm running 15 minutes behind or whatever the case or whatever. Still nothing. My husband's literally like, yo, you think she's coming? Maybe you just don't leave the house until she answers. And I'm like, no. I'm thinking like, I know how it is sometimes. Like, I'm driving. She's coming from a little further than me. I'm thinking like maybe she's driving and can't text or whatever the case is. So like, I'm just literally trying to assume the best. So, I called her when I'm around the corner because I still haven't heard anything. Called her. She's ignoring me. She's sending me to voicemail. Why did the girl text me and say, call you right back on the phone with my daughter? Excuse you? Excuse you.
Now, me personally, I have had a great experience with Bumble BFF. I've met one friend that has stuck from Bumble BFF. Shout out to you, Asia. And through Asia, I was able to meet my other very close friend, Nicole. So I met my friends through Bumble BFF, but I've heard from a lot of people, even people that I'm close to, that they just have not had the best time meeting people, and they just wish that they were able to meet others outside versus online. But with a lot of places not having spaces for younger people available where they can meet people, it's just gonna get more and more difficult the older we get. And that gets into my last and final talking point, the lack of communal spaces. The lack of communal spaces has been hitting very hard for Gen Z. And it's gonna hit even harder for our younger generations to come. It's not just about having places to hang out, but it's the fact that we are losing those everyday interactions that can potentially give us a sense of belonging. With fewer places to connect in person, loneliness and depression will continue to be on the rise. And this is something that a lot of people are quietly struggling with. These days, it seems all we literally have is home and school or work. But what's missing very much so in our generation are those third places. So what is a third place? A third place is like the leisure things we do in order to help us to function in our everyday lives. That's like coffee shops, parks, libraries, the mall, community centers. These are places where you can just exist among other people. You don't necessarily have to talk to them, but it gives you the space to talk to them if you really want to. And the sad thing is, a lot of these places that I just listed are closing at a very, very fast rate. No one goes to libraries anymore. They're closing them down. People don't really go to the malls anymore to hang out. They're closing them down. These third places are getting less and less due to people not utilizing these spaces. So that means like if you went to the coffee shop and then you ran into a friend at the coffee shop because you guys all go to this one coffee shop and you guys just say, hey, how are you doing? Just checking in on each other. And then you say hi and bye. It doesn't have to be this deep conversation. People were just seeing each other, interacting with each other. That little interaction helped people to build a community and feel more connected.
Our generation is so depressed because we don't have a third place. In our parents' generation and almost every generation before that, there were three places: work, home, and social gatherings. If you had a shitty day at work, you could look forward to going to the pub after work with your friends. Or if you get into an argument with your wife, you could go to the golf course and hang out with your buddies. Or if you're feeling lonely on a random Tuesday, you can look forward to your darts or pool league after work. Every single generation before ours had this third place of gathering besides us. The sense of community and belongingness that people used to have at this third place, like it or not, made it a lot harder to be depressed. Nowadays, most people do not have three places, they have two and sometimes even one. Either work and home, or sometimes just home because people work from home. That sense of community, the sense of belongingness, the social gatherings that people used to rely on a daily basis are completely gone from our generation. I don't know about you, but if I'm by myself for too long, anxiety, depression all kick in and I need to go out and see people and hang out with friends and be social. This lack of a social setting is a major reason why I think depression's way higher today, and we need to bring back social gatherings. Bring back the local pub, bring back the darts leagues, bring back pool, bring back the golf leagues. Go out outside of your work, outside of your house, and do something on a daily basis or a weekly basis that makes you feel part of something and gives you a sense of community.
I hate it whenever boomers are like, oh, kids nowadays never go outside. Because there's nowhere to go, Cheryl. I would love to have somewhere to go hang out with my friends that was cheap and fun, but unfortunately that just does not exist anymore. Everything is so expensive and I can't even imagine like just going to the bowling alley just cause. And people can't afford it because they have to spend their money on, I don't know, things that they need to live. And yes, we have malls, but they're either dying or dangerous. The only options if you want to hang out are either at someone's house or in a random parking lot.
I mean, look at our neighborhoods. We don't even know our neighbors anymore, okay? I will never forget like growing up in my childhood house, my mom would be like, isn't it crazy that we don't know each other? And I'm like, yeah, like that's so true. Like we really don't know one another. We see each other, we might say hi and bye, but we don't know who lives in the house. We don't know their names. It's not common to know your neighbors these days, even living in an apartment complex. Remember how back in the day, asking for a cup of flour or some butter was a norm. Now it's like, I'm not asking my neighbor for that. A lot of people don't interact. I mean, also because people are probably fearful due to the craziness of today's world. But with so many of these spaces and even outlets shrinking or just straight up disappearing, we're left feeling more and more isolated, lonely, and depressed. And then even when you are in these spaces, people aren't communicating. No one's really talking, even if they're sitting right across from each other or next to each other. People just interact with who they came with, or if they came alone, they just have their headphones on, they're doing work. We're all just in our own worlds and universes. Talking to strangers in a cafe, and I know you guys can be like, but my safety, because a lot of y'all say this, but We could talk about this in a different video. But talking to strangers can help foster and build relationships and potential friendships. And the last time a lot of Gen Z, because Gen Z, y'all, we're getting older, we're graduating college, we're leaving that entire campus mindset. The last time we experienced third places was when we were in college. We literally had our own mini community. And I think that's why when students graduate from college, being in the real world is such a big shock factor to them. In college, we knew our neighbors. We would leave our dorm rooms open just to have people walk in and out of our rooms. We were able to meet up with people that had our same majors, meet up with people that were in the same clubs we were in, just meet up with people that are similar to you, or if they're not similar to you, they can be in a whole different industry and y'all can still be friends because y'all are roommates, or you know that's your roommate's friend, or you met them in the dining hall. Those spontaneous hallway conversations or just those group hangouts are less and less the older we get. And that's why I find walkable cities to be so important. I feel like walkable cities is a big reason why there is still community, especially in places like New York. I feel like with walkable cities, you're able to walk around. You'll see familiar faces. You'll see, oh, that's Toby the dog. You know who's Toby's owner. You know who owns that mom and pop shop. With walkable cities, you're able to know people more, and that helps to foster a community. But with a lot of our cities not being walkable cities, in the United States in particular, it is becoming more and more common for people to feel isolated, lonely, and depressed. All right, you guys, that is the end of today's video. I want to know what you guys think in the comments down below. What are your thoughts on the lack of community we have today, the lack of walkable cities we have today, the lack of authentic, romantic, and beautiful relationships, the lack of friendships? Let's get the discussion going on in the comments down below. If you guys like this video, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. We are on the road to 300,000 subscribers. Though we are not in-person besties, you guys are my virtual besties, so I love you guys all so very much. And yeah, I will see you all in my very next video. Love you guys. Bye. Mwah.
Taking you in this moment, come get close like you own name. Read your aura, you want more of all this love, you'll be your name. Release all of your burden.